and it will help save the lives of so many more.
As it has for us.
Hello everybody, my name is Jason Piercey and this is Out of the Fog. And is this ever an interesting and eclectic show? We're running the gamut on a whole bunch of stuff here today. We have a local photographer who created a project where weekly she took a different self-portrait, all fantastical and beautiful and very whimsical, almost magical. And then people submitted stories that they would write to match the photo that she had taken, and it all got turned into a book. That's incredible. And then after that, we're going to talk to some high school students and St. John Ambulance and how they're putting together this like first responder in high school program. And then from Toronto, a local home cook, Chris Dunne, is on a new show on the Food Network Canada, and you're going to get to see all of this. Super interesting show, and it's all coming up like in just a minute, right after this.
You're watching Rogers TV, St. John's.
God will protect us. She is our strength. She is our light.
Did you say Guyon?
Of course.
Better than any drug. We'd also add a lot of drugs, so it was...
I figure we get them to do one of their classic circles.
Yes, they seem to want to do that a lot.
You're watching Rogers TV, St. John's.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Let me introduce you to Kit Sora.
Hello.
A photographer. And also, just as an aside, just because oftentimes when I see you, you're reveling in this world, local legendary cosplayer.
Legendary. I'll take it.
Yeah, why not, right?
Hello.
Yeah. So, and I guess the two worlds sort of cross over sometimes.
Yeah,
as
which
will
works.
come up when we talk about your project here.
Yes.
So, a photographer, and something that a lot of local photographers don't do, you do a lot of self-portrait.
Yes, that's sort of my focus.
Yeah, is that like an exploratory sort of thing for you?
Yeah, it stems from, I guess, wanting to be in control of absolutely everything. So, like, however I look is sort of there. I shoot it, whereas when you're shooting other people, like, they're sort of in control of them, and you can guide them, but it's still not 100%. Just me.
So is that from a creative perspective? Like, you just like to be able to shape everything to be exactly the way?
It's sort of a visionary thing. That, and, I can spend 5 hours with myself in the woods, and it's just my time, whereas if I take somebody else, I feel the pressure is a little bit more intense to get the shot and kind of move on.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot of work, because you have a signature style.
Yes.
And we've spoken a little bit about, like, prior to the red lights coming on, we spoke a little bit about what, that photographers often have a signature style. Like, you can look at a photo and say, this was most likely taken by whomever, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yours, there's a lot of consistent themes in color and in mood.
Mood, yep.
And they're very fantastical.
Fantastical.
Right.
I've gotten magical before, fantasy-esque.
Yeah.
Weird.
So, weird. Where does that come from somewhere?
I am pretty deeply rooted in fairy tales and, cultural lore and just anything out of this world. I kind of like being able to bring those elements into my work and sort of showing, if you look a little bit harder, if you, imagine a little bit deeper, it's all right there. All of my stuff is done locally, aside from 1 or 2 trips that I've taken away. And it's all usually within the same, 10 to 20 feet, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So all of these are taken sort of in the same area?
I have like 3 specific places that I shoot, and that's pretty much it.
And they're in and around St. John's?
Yep.
Wow.
Hidden little corners.
Well, you never would know that.
You'd never know.
Because sometimes you're on the edge of a cliff, and sometimes you're like in like a little gully, like in a pond, and other times you're against a bank of flowers.
Bowering Park.
Bowering Park, see? Bowering Park.
Bowering
right?
Park, yeah.
So, I mean, there's post work that goes into creating some of the stuff that, and by post work I just mean your creativity also, not just as a photographer, but as having the vision for the end product and the ability to manipulate the light and the color through editing and
yes.
yeah.
There's a bit of a work to it. Usually when I'm doing a photo, because I do one a week every week, that's just my life now. And I usually start planning Wednesday. So today, my shoot day, we'll start with like a sketch and then we'll go from there. So the sketch, and then it's like, okay, what props do I need? What wigs do I need? What accessories do I need? And then I'll scout out my locations and then we'll shoot it. And shooting can take anywhere from like 5 minutes to an hour, depending.
Yeah.
And then the post work gets done. I try to shoot as much as I can. Like 9 chances out of 10, what you see is actually there.
Yeah.
I'm not huge into Photoshop. I can think of like 5 photos that I have.
Well, in my mind,
things.
the things that I'm thinking about there is like there's one where you're like holding a mirror that doesn't have a mirror in it, sort of. So like there's a section where like half of your body isn't there.
So like that's one of the more obvious ones. There's that one. There's another one where I'm sat in a giant teacup with marshmallows. So like I'm not actually in a giant teacup. I'm actually on my living room floor in a hula hoop. So like there are ways to get there, but there's only about 5 photos where I have actually done the Photoshop things. Everything else is just basic Lightroom adjustments and colors and kind of setting the mood from there.
Let's talk about the project itself that turned into a book and all that. So where did that come from?
It's just, I was doing a lot of client work. I was shooting a lot of weddings and doing a lot of just shoots for everybody else. And obviously I started photography because I like the artsy side and I like being, creative.
Yeah.
And that stuff, while it gave me a little bit of creativity, it wasn't as fulfilling. So I decided, okay, we're going to do 1 photo a week every week for a year. We'll see how it goes, just to, force me to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And we started that back in 2016, and here we am. And it just sort of gained more traction, and I've had a couple of shows out of it, and people have been super excited. So now I've got this almost like a cult following of people.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, and then Engine Books sort of started following my work, and I started working with them doing. I'd do a photo.
Is that
and
Matthew?
Yeah,
Drew?
Matthew
Engine?
Drew
Yeah.
and Ellen Curtis.
Yeah.
So they latched on, and I would do a photo, and they would share the photo, encouraging local authors to write a short story about the photo with like 250 words.
Which is really, really interesting.
Exactly. So it sort of got everybody on board, and then we had this panel of judges, and we would choose, the best story for the image. And then at the end of the year, we compiled them all into what is now my autobiography. Look it up; it's super cool.
So, speaking of look it up, where can people go to get it?
Chapters.
Yeah.
I believe it's at Broken Books as well.
Yeah.
And it's online as well, of course.
So if they go to kitsora.com, they'll find a link?
Kitsora.com or enginebooks.com as well.
Okay,
There's
either one
both
of those.
Yeah.
They'll be able to find what they're looking for.
Yeah.
What's next? You're
What's
just going to keep doing the same thing?
Yeah, well, I just started my 5th year of doing this strange and unusual and wonderful project. My darling husband has been there since the beginning to sort of...
Congratulations on your nuptials, by the way.
It was super fun. He's been my biggest sort of supporter with this. There are weeks where I just don't want to do a photo, and he's like, no, we're too far in.
I have a really fascinating question now, or I think it's fascinating.
Okay.
Who did your wedding photography?
Stacey Birmingham.
Stacey Birmingham.
Stacey Birmingham.
I feel like that is the credit.
It was so hard.
Yeah.
She's great. We're great friends anyway, so it needed to be somebody that could tolerate me for a full day, of course.
Amazing.
But her stuff is fantastic.
Cool.
So.
Kit, thank you very much for coming out. We're going to send as many people as we can to Engine Books and to Chapters and to kitsora.com to see if we can hawk some of your books, because I flipped through and it's incredible.
Yay.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back with more cool stuff right after this.
All right, girls.
Mom, you said it's played again.
Workplace injuries hurt the most at home.
Our son is one.
My father was one.
I am one.
Are you one?
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Here's some cool people that you should meet. I think you guys are doing something that's really interesting. So this is Bonnie. Bonnie is with St. John Ambulance. And this is Joe. Joe is a teacher at O'Donnell. And this is Jonathan, who is a student at O'Donnell. And a lot of people might be like, what are they all doing on the teal couch together? So, Bonnie, I'll start with you. There's a program that you have sponsored with St. John Ambulance through O'Donnell.
Right.
Can you just talk about it just for a second here?
Well, I guess just to back up a little bit, you know, St. John Ambulance is a social enterprise, and our mission is saving lives. So we do that
at home, work, and play.
Yes, we do.
Work, home, and play,
a whole bunch of different spots.
Yeah.
So we do it by teaching people about first aid, and we do it all over the province. But because we're a social enterprise, we redirect those funds back into the community through programs like Therapy Dog and Medical First Responder. Yes. We're very interested in youth, however, and when we found out about this opportunity at O'Donnell, we said, you know, we want to get involved because obviously, you know, we want people to learn how to save lives as young as possible. And like I said, when we heard about this from Joe Santos here, from O'Donnell, a teacher there, we said, yeah, we want to get on board and sponsor this team.
So, Joe, first of all, Joe Santos is an excellent name.
Thank you.
Like that is like Jonathan? Is Joe Santos not the best name?
I think it's pretty great.
It's a great name. So, all right, Santos. You're the teacher liaison through St. John Ambulance to bring this program to fruition, sort of?
I'm the teacher mentor for the team, and the team is composed of grade 10 to 12 students at O'Donnell. And so I'm the mentor. I got in touch with Bonnie and Roberta at St. John Ambulance, and we planned this whole thing out, and it's come to fruition, so it's really
cool. So what kind of stuff do the students who are in this first responder program in your high school, like what does it look like? What do they do?
So they are responsible, or they take care of any incidences that happen at the school that are of medical nature. So if someone falls, someone has a seizure, whatever happens, they respond. So we have a group of students that are on call a week at a time, so they're week blocks, and they're made up of 4, 5, 6 students. So if there is an emergency, the office calls down and says there's an emergency, or first responders, please respond to whatever room. And the team that's on call knows that it's their turn to go down and respond.
So what gamut of things like are you covering here?
Anything that happens at the school. Yeah, from a cut to a spinal injury, which we had a couple of years ago, and that the students responded, and it turned out really, really well because of it, I think.
So this has been going on since 2011?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So we had the team since 2011. We're the only one in the province. We're working on another team at the moment. And I'll leave that to Bonnie. And my goal, and it's always been my goal since the beginning, is to have a team in every high school in the province. And
so this is just another reason why O'Donnell is better than Mount Pearl Senior? Is that basically what this is about?
Yes.
I feel like that's what this entire show is actually about.
Actually, we're just better than everyone. First aid.
Jonathan, you are a first responder.
Yes.
So you've studied to some degree and been certified in certain levels of first aid.
Oh yeah, with St. John Ambulance actually.
Yeah. Well, obviously, right? Yeah. Plug that again. Can we see some logos?
Yeah.
Oh, can we see some logos? So St. John Ambulance logos. Yeah. So what made you want to get involved?
Well, actually, I plan to pursue a career in medicine, and I figured why not join the first responder team, get a taste of what it could actually be like, and expose myself. And it's actually just a great skill to have. Yeah. Being able to help somebody who's in need.
It also really will reflect well in your med school interview that you were a first responder in the first ever high school first responder sort of thing.
Yes.
So can you recall specific, how long have you been doing it?
I've actually been in the first responder team since I came to high school in grade 10. I joined then and I've been in it ever since.
See, I don't know if you're not in grade 10 now, so you can literally just be like
grade 12 now.
Okay, all right, just I'm just saying. So you're a few years deep.
Yes.
Have you've encountered some instances where you had to respond to a particular class?
Yes.
And I mean, are you able to describe a situation for us? Just because I find it fascinating.
I can't go into too much detail, you know, personal.
Of course not. Of course not.
But actually, very recently, I was called down to the office. There was a particular person who was fainting. They were coming in and out and in and out. And of course, I can't go into too much detail, but there's not a whole lot you can do when somebody's fainting, so we actually sent them to the Janeway, and I've heard recently that they're doing very good now.
That's amazing.
That's the most recent case that I personally have responded to.
That reminds me of like an episode of Fresh Prince, where like Carlton is fainting or something, and Will is like, "Quick, get me a glass of water." So he gets water, and then he drinks it, and he's like, "Okay." And then, so that's what I probably would have done. But that's why I'm not an O'Donnell first responder. And I'm a Bayman, so I didn't go to O'Donnell. So, Bonnie, back to you for a second.
Yep.
This belongs in more than one school. Like, what are you doing?
Well, we are actually working on another school right now. It's a bit of a process to get it up and running because you know what we've done is obviously we've started them off with uniforms, and they have you know, the team has some first aid supplies from us, but the training is a big piece of it, right? So they are all trained. All team members are trained to the standard level, so a 2-day course. But we want to continue training them every single year. So we're going to give them annual recertification in CPR and AED, because you want that to be top of mind, even if they're not dealing with it every single time. And we also want to do scenario training with them. So we have instructors that are going to go in and just presents different scenarios and how they would react.
Kind of role play-ish, sort of?
Yeah, exactly like that. So there's a little bit to it, and like you know, Joe said, I mean, this is really, you know, has been a passion of his for a long time, and it does fit in with our mission. And we would like to see it in way more schools, but like I said, it is a bit of a process. We should be able to announce another school fairly soon, and then we'll see where it takes us after that.
I have an idea. The next time you do one of these like displays, sort of like when somebody comes in and do like a reenactment or something, I should come out and like be a part of it and film it so that the world can see the kind of stuff.
That would be fantastic.
That you do.
Joe, would you like that, Joe?
That would be awesome.
Jonathan, would you like that?
I would
you like to perform CPR on me?
I don't know about that.
Anyway,
so
only if necessary.
You want to be like an actor in the scenario?
Or whatever. I just want to tell the story. It's important to me.
Okay.
Thank you all very much for coming out. You're doing wonderful things. And thank you guys for watching. And we'll be right back after this.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. I need to introduce you to a guy who clearly knows what's up when it comes to getting some grub. This is Mr. Chris Dunne. Chris, what's up, man?
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
That's going well. Thanks for taking the time out of what is clearly a very busy schedule to reach out to us back home in Newfoundland. So you're in Toronto right now, right?
That is correct. Yeah, I've been in Toronto now for almost over 4 years, actually.
So a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, you decided that your joy of making food for people is something that you might want to turn into a little bit of a business?
Yeah. So I guess it was probably 3 years ago, I would say, and I really started getting into cooking and started to, you know, just follow it and study it. And when you're living in Toronto, it's kind of like the mecca of food here in Canada, if you will. So you're just learning about all these different cuisines and all these different styles of food, and so that kind of gave me some inspiration. And I actually spent some time in Malaysia about a long time ago now, 7-8 years ago. And that sort of, you know, in the same vein kind of gave me inspiration of, wow, this is really what food is all about. So taking all that knowledge and sort of just spinning it into, hey, you know what, let's see what I can do in the kitchen. And it was kind of like a release for me in terms of, you know, you get home from work and I just loved being in the kitchen and I loved cooking. And that's where it all started from. So about a year ago, I actually officially started a catering business called Condo Cook here in Toronto, and started doing Newfoundland and East Coast inspired eats and catering, you know, just some small dinner parties and some small events. And you know what? It's been going great so far.
That's good. And then this opportunity, Food Network Canada created a new show called Wall of Chefs, which is like a reality TV-ish cooking competition where you pair up with like 3 or 4 other people on an individual episode and kind of fight to the death. Is that fair?
Yeah, basically, you got it. It was, I guess the process started back last summer and going through the application process. And, there's 3 or 4 different steps to go through. And, I kept going and I kept getting emails and calls saying, you know what, Chris, we want to go through the next step with you and the next step. And before you know it, the phone rings and says, hey, you know what, you're going to be on TV. So I'm taking part in a new show called Wall of Chefs. It airs February 3rd, is the official season debut episode. And essentially each episode, there's 4 different home cooks like myself who go head to head in a challenge. There's 3 challenges throughout the episode. And after each challenge, one of the chefs goes home, or one of the cooks goes home, until there's only one standing. So it was a really cool concept for a show, and it was a lot of fun. And there's sort of the wall that they call it, which is comprised of, literally the most iconic chefs across the country. Like, you name it, from Sue Surlee to Todd Perrin to it's just crazy. The quality of the chefs that were there. So, when you're on set and you're standing there looking up at these guys, you're just like, wow, how did I even get here? These guys are going to critique the food that I'm making. It is kind of a little bit daunting of a task, but honestly, it's just an absolutely incredible experience.
It's so fascinating, and I really like the idea that you throw out like local names when you're talking about the fact that this is what you're doing, because I guess it shows that Food Network Canada is like actually coast to coast. Like, we're talking about the whole country. So that's really fascinating. Yeah,
that's it. They had 40 different chefs. I think it was 30 or 40 chefs. So there was 12 chefs per episode that would be judging. And they sort of just rotated in and out. But, they represented everything from coast to coast, literally from, like I said, Todd Perrin at Mallard Cottage, all the way out to, Hugh Adjason or guys that, are represented by the West Coast. So it was definitely a wide breadth of chefs from coast to coast there.
So I'm thinking about, like, in the conversation that we're having, the difference between the title of a home cook versus being a chef. So the word chef has a certain amount, I guess, of formal education attached to it, or whatever the case. So what's a home cook?
Basically, you're an untrained chef, if you will. So you don't actually have any formal training. And that was one of the prerequisites of this show. You weren't allowed to have ever worked in a commercial kitchen or have a culinary degree. So you basically had to be self-taught, if you will. And that's what is represented by the home cooks versus, of course, the chefs are all formally trained cooks, whether it be in a specific type of cuisine or just overall, and they have, commercial kitchen experience working in restaurants. So that's the difference between the two. And that's sort of what makes this show a little bit different, because you had to not have any formal training whatsoever to be a part of it.
I'm curious a little bit about the application process. So, if they're recruiting for television also, so it's not just your ability to prepare a meal. There's also got to be some personality component there too.
Yeah, I think so. And, you're obviously being a jovial Newfoundlander kind of helps in that regard. They want to have representation from coast to coast. So I think the fact that I focused on Newfoundland flavors, Newfoundland cuisine, and farm-to-table stuff, I think that definitely helped. But the application process, it started, you basically prepare a dish, and you had to do sort of a live video or a 3-minute video of you finalizing that dish, and you submitted that. Then you go through a phone interview process, then you go through an in-person interview process, and finally, so it was a fairly extensive process to go through. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's more to it than just the food. They're looking for characters, and essentially they're casting for a show, right? So I don't know, maybe something I did must have appealed to them. But you know what? Like I said, it was just an amazing experience to be a part of, and it felt a little long at times from start to finish before you actually see the show, but it was worth it for sure.
Yeah, they just wanted a little bit of that patented Chris Dunne charm. That's what that is. That's what they needed. So you said
just turn that meter.
The show will officially air on the 3rd of February for the first episode, but your particular episode begins on the 2nd of March?
Yeah, that's right. So February 3rd is the official kickoff date of the show. So that'll be the first 4 home cooks, and that'll be a really cool way to just see what the concept of the show is all about. I think people are really going to love it, and just in terms of how it's produced, and it's kind of, it's all packed in 1 hour, but there's 4 different challenges, and that was the most eye-opening thing for me was, you see the reality TV side of things, and you're like, oh, you know what, they don't actually get 30 minutes to do that, but no, the clock started and we were firing away. There was no magic of TV there. They didn't give us 2 extra hours to make this stuff or anything like that. So that was the coolest part of it. But yeah, so you'll see February 3rd, the official launch date of the show, and then my episode will be on March 2nd. So 10 p.m. Eastern.
Here at Rogers, I mean, I don't want to necessarily tell everybody to turn the station away from us on March the 2nd, but I do think there would be some value on watching the Condo Cook on the 2nd of March on the Food Network. So I'll be sure to toss people your way.
I appreciate it very, very much. I'm sure all I can say, my only goal is just to make Newfoundland proud. So we'll see, and everybody have to tune in and see how it all ended.
That's awesome, Chris. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back after this.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Well, what a show we had tonight. So fun. When I meet all of these interesting people who are just in and around our community and who do things for us and who tell stories, and they are so authentically themselves. Like Chris Dunne, he works in hockey in marketing, but he's a home cook, and that's a passion. So he finds his way to television. Bonnie with St. John Ambulance, and Jonathan and Joe Santos, who they care about being able to protect and help and save other people. So while they do all completely different things, this is how they converge, and that's remarkable. And then we talk about Kit Sora and just the way that wonderful woman's brain works blows my mind. It is so incredible. It's so fascinating. Go to Chapters, go to Engine Books, go to kitsora.com. Check it out. You will find it so remarkable. Thank you all for watching. I can't wait to see you all again next week.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.